Hello, everyone. Today is our session for exam preparation, and today we're going to improve our listening skill for a level B2. So, I was hoping that somebody will join me today to this class, but it seems like the two girls who postulated didn't answer. So, the idea today is to improve our listening skill and our comprehension as well. So first of all, I'm gonna start by sharing with you some couple of videos that will um, that you will see or listening more accurate some experience of someone living abroad. There is a video. My name is Lady Ginarango Calero, and today I'm gonna be with you through this journey of improving our listening skill. So first of all, like I just mentioned, um, sorry, like I just mentioned, we're gonna start listening to a video of someone talking about the experience of living abroad. And let's see the following questions. So first, I'm gonna play the video so you can listen to.
Hey everybody, welcome to this B2 English listening practice video. You can use this video to train your listening and comprehension as I speak. You ready? So today, I'm going to talk to you about living abroad. I was an expat for a few years, so I can offer a pretty good amount of insight into this topic. Let's start first with the good things. Living abroad opens up a whole world of new experiences, ideas, and cultures that you never would have dreamed of if you hadn't moved abroad. The second you step off the plane and realize that you're not just on vacation, you're in your new home, it can hit you like a truck. Regardless of how much planning you've done, and regardless of how much desire you have to live in that new country, the reality of it all will strike fear in you. But this fear is actually a good fear. It's like an exciting fear. You've probably heard the expression, to have butterflies in your stomach. Well, the experience of arriving in your new country and knowing that you're going to set up your life there will definitely give you a serious case of the butterflies. It's more like giant moths. But like I said, I consider that a positive. Another good thing is that hopefully you'll get to learn a new language. Ideally, you'd already have a decent level in the country's language, and so being in that country and surrounded by native speakers would be a great way to improve. But as you can probably imagine, not everyone gets the same pleasure out of speaking a foreign language as I do or other language learners do. So this might be a negative for some people, and I personally know people that have been living in a foreign country for 4, 5, 6 years, and they can barely put a sentence together. So my advice to those moving abroad would be to study the language as much as possible before you go. Because if you arrive in your new country without knowing any of the language, you're not just gonna pick it up. It doesn't work like that. All the talking you hear around you is just going to be like static noise in the background. It won't make any sense to you and it won't help you learn. You need to study and get to the level where you can actually understand the message of what people are saying, and then you can go out into the real world and pick it up. And then you can have fun speaking that language in your new country. Alright, so the biggest negative about living abroad is obviously being far away from your loved ones. This one's a no-brainer. It's not easy to live far from your family and friends. It's one thing to move across the country, but moving to a completely different country is a whole nother level of difficulty, mainly because it's harder to visit each other. I know it's not the same as being with them in person, but it does help to video chat or even just call your family. When you think about it, it's not that different than talking to them face to face, except for the fact that you can't touch them. So yeah, that's the hardest part for sure. And the other negative thing is that there are always going to be certain things about the new country or culture that you don't like. In my experience, I was able to adapt to my new country pretty well, but there were some things that I just couldn't get used to. Things like the low quality infrastructure, the lack of punctuality, and some other minor things. You should definitely try to adapt as much as possible in your new country, but there will be some things that are just too different or that are contrary to your personality. That's the reality of living abroad. Okay, so that's all for today. Leave a comment and let me know if you've ever lived abroad before or if you'd like to live abroad. I'll see you next video.
So now, sorry. So now I'm gonna
Hey
share with
everybody.
you 5 questions, and the idea was to answer the following questions based on the listening passage about living abroad. And the first is, according to the speaker, what kind of fear do you experience when first arriving in a new country to live? The second one, okay, let's read the first one and see the answer. So, an exciting fear, a positive fear, like having butterflies in your stomach, as is mentioned, but also like a giant mouth. So it's kind of mixing up a lot of emotions. What is the speaker's strong recommendation about language learning before moving abroad? Study the language as much as possible before you go, because you won't just pick it up upon arrival. So that is really important. And what does the speaker compare hearing a foreign language without prior knowledge to? Static noise in the background. Yeah, totally accurate. What is mentioned as the biggest negative about living abroad? Being far away from your loved ones. Yes, that's really hard. What 2 specific examples does the speaker give about things he couldn't get used to it in his new country? Low quality infrastructure and lack of punctuality. Now I'm gonna play the second video that is listening comprehension questions, and we will see a video of 6 minutes English, the benefit of doing nothing, and then we'll have some question afterwards.
6 Minute English
from bbclearningenglish.com.
Hello, this is 6 Minute English from BBC Learning English. I'm Beth.
And I'm Neil. Phew, I've spent a day in meetings, then shopping, then collecting the kids from school. I'm exhausted, Beth. What have you been doing today?
Oh, not much. Just sitting around, doing nothing, relaxing and kicking back.
Lucky you. Don't you have any work to do?
It may not look it, Neil, but I'm actually as busy as a bee. If you've seen nature documentaries about worker bees flying from flower to flower, you probably think animals are always on the move. But the surprising truth is, away from the cameras, most animals spend most of their time doing absolutely nothing at all.
In the natural world, where finding food and shelter is hard work, why have some animals evolved to do nothing? And if it's good enough for animals, would being lazy work for humans too? That's what we'll be discussing in this program, and as usual, we'll be learning some useful new vocabulary as well.
But first, let me work up the energy to ask you a question, Neil. Of course, some animals have a reputation for lounging about. Lions, for example, can sleep up to 20 hours a day. But what is the slowest moving animal on Earth? Is it A, the giant tortoise, B, the three-toed sloth, or C, the koala?
Well, I think it's the three-toed sloth.
OK, Neil, I'll reveal the correct answer at the end of the programme. Now, it's no surprise that lazy lions love relaxing, but even animals with reputations for being busy spend time doing nothing. Look carefully into an ant's nest and you'll see around half of them just sitting there motionless. Here's Professor Dan Charbonneau, an expert in insect behaviour, discussing the lazy rock ant with Emily Knight, presenter of BBC Radio 4 programme Nature Bang.
Dan's research has focused on ant colonies, a species called Temnothorax rogatulus, or the rock ant.
I think ants are sort of a symbol of like industriousness. They have this whole tiny little society going on that's kind of similar to ours, some idealized version of what humans might be. If we could only like pull it together and all work together, we could be as industrious as the ants. But then when you look at it, roughly about half the colony is inactive at any given time.
We think ants are industrious or hard-working. Groups of ants called colonies seem tiny, perfect societies where everyone works hard for the good of the group.
Then why are so many of them inactive? One possible answer is that they're reserve ants, ready to step in if disease or disaster strike. But could it simply be that they don't work because they don't need to? Would you get out of bed on Monday morning if you didn't have to?
Maybe the ants can teach us a thing or two about relaxing, but wouldn't it get boring just sitting around all day?
Not according to psychologist Dr. Sandy Mann. She thinks being productive, working to produce a lot for the amount of resources we use, is overrated. Boredom has its benefits too, as she explained to BBC Radio 4 programme Nature Bang.
Would humans have invented bread or beer or fire, if we hadn't been bored and were wondering what on earth would happen if we mixed this with this? Are all these sorts of inventions the mother of boredom?
But in this world of constant stimulation, switching off is harder than it's ever been.
That's why we're constantly swiping and scrolling and looking for the next big thing and the new thing, and we get bored of things very quickly. So it's a kind of paradox. To get rid of this unpleasant state of boredom is actually to allow more boredom into your life.
Dr. Mann doubts humans would have invented things without the curiosity that comes from being bored. Boredom is the mother of invention, an idea based on the famous proverb, necessity is the mother of invention, an idiom meaning that if you really need to do something, you will think of a way of doing it.
Instead of fearing boredom, we can open up to its benefits by switching off, stopping worrying or thinking about something and relaxing. Slowing down helps too, something we can definitely learn from our animal cousins.
I think now is a good time to reveal the answer to my question, since we have nothing else to do.
You asked me to name.
So after we played that video, the idea was to answer these 5 following questions based on the BBC Learning English video we just watched. So we have, according to the video, what surprising fact is true about the most animals when they are away from cameras? What percentage of ants in a colony does the Professor Dan Carbonell describe as inactive? What does the Dr. Sandy Mann suggest about boredom and humans' inventions? And what common proverb does Dr. Mann adapt to describe boredom's role in the creativity? What is the top of speed of the three-toed sloth mentioned in the video? So those were the questions, and here are the answers. So moving on, we had also this listening part that is an audio.
You will hear people talking in 8 different situations.
Yeah,
For questions 1 to 8,
talking about
choose
different situations, and we have to choose either A, B, or C, depending on the audio. So we have this. You heard the students talking about the first geography class of the year. You heard a boy telling a friend about buying some food for wild birds. You heard a girl telling a friend about a spelling competition she won.
You will hear people talk.
You heard a technology teacher telling her students about the model cars they are going to make. You heard a boy talking to his sister about a sweatshirt he bought recently. You heard a school football coach talking to his team about avoiding injuries.
You will hear people.
And you hear a girl talking to her friend about building a building she just visited. And you hear a boy leaving a phone message for a friend about family camping holiday. So this was the purpose, and of course share some tips and things that we can do to improve our listening skill. So since nobody joined, unfortunately, this was just an explicative video. I hope you have a really nice day. See you another time. Bye bye.